In the 1740s, a group of men in northern Germany wrote down their most closely guarded ceremony in a code so well built that nobody read it again for 250 years. Not a lost language, not a rotted manuscript, not a document nobody bothered with. It beat every person who tried until it stopped being a person who tried. A man is led into a room he has never entered before. Somebody hands him a sheet of paper and tells him to read it out loud. The sheet is blank. He says so. He is given a pair of spectacles and told to try again. Still nothing. His eyes are washed with a cloth, and he is told to look one more time. Nothing. Then the men around him take up candles and close into a circle. The master of ceremonies steps forward holding a small pair of tweezers, while the others speak to him steadily, urging him, comforting him, encouraging him. The master plucks a single hair from the man's eyebrow. The operation is announced as complete. The man looks down at the sheet, still in his hands, and there is writing on it. He has just been given his sight. That is the word they use. And from this point forward, he is permitted to know things the man who walked into that room was not. The obvious question is what a grown man in 18th century Germany was being initiated into, and why the answer had to be written in a code nobody could break. Start with who these men said they were. They called themselves the High Enlightened Oculist Order of Wolfenbüttel. An oculist is an eye doctor. Wolfenbüttel is a ducal town in Lower Saxony, the sort of place with a court, an archive, and a small educated class with time on its hands. The order was founded by a nobleman, Count Friedrich August von Veltheim, in 1742, and its organizing idea was sight as a metaphor for knowledge. That's why a man who cannot read a blank page becomes able to read it only after something is done to his eyes. None of this was unusual for the period. According to the historian Andreas Honorforce, who studies these organizations, hundreds of thousands of Europeans belonged to secret societies in the 18th century. In Sweden alone, there were more than 100 separate orders. This was an entire parallel social world with its own hierarchies, its own regalia, and its own paperwork. And that paperwork is the reason we're here. The oculists wrote their ceremonies into a bound book, 105 pages of high-quality paper carrying 2 different watermarks, covered in gold and green brocade, filled with roughly 75,000 handwritten characters. It's a beautiful object. Somebody spent serious money on it. Every character in it is encrypted with 2 exceptions. On the front, in plain, readable handwriting, someone wrote a name and a year, Philip, 1866. That's an ownership mark, made more than a century after the book was written. And at the end of the last page, 2 words, Copiale Cipher. Those 2 words gave the manuscript its modern name, and they carry an implication that usually gets skipped. If this is copy number 3, there were at least 2 others. So why encrypt any of it? In 1738, Pope Clement XII formally banned Freemasonry. In much of Catholic Europe, belonging to a forbidden fraternity was not an embarrassment. It was a legal problem. 4 years after that ban, a German count founds a new society with a harmless medical purpose, an elaborate ritual, and a very serious cipher. And it is serious. This is not a boys' club substitution code. The book uses somewhere between 90 and 100 distinct symbols to encode a 26-letter alphabet. That imbalance is deliberate. It's a homophonic cipher, meaning a single letter of the message can be written using several different symbols. The letter E alone has 7. Some symbols stand for entire words, and the ordinary unaccented Roman letters scattered through the text, the ones that look like the readable part, encode nothing at all. Every one of those design choices attacks the same thing: letter frequency. Code breaking for most of history has come down to counting. Certain letters appear more often than others in every language, and once you spot that pattern, you can pull the whole thing apart. The oculist's cipher flattens the count until there's no pattern left to see. There are also 8 characters drawn noticeably larger than the rest, which appear to stand for specific individuals in the order. Inside a book written entirely in code, 8 people were given a second layer of code of their own. And it worked. Scholars at the German Academy of Sciences in Berlin examined the manuscript in the 1970s and got nowhere. A linguist at Uppsala University in Sweden, Copiale Cipher, was handed a copy by a friend as a challenge, and got nowhere with it either. She kept it for years. 2.5 centuries after a group of provincial German gentlemen sat down to protect their ceremony, it was still protected. This channel takes the stories that get one paragraph in an article and spends an hour underneath them. The sources, the disputes, the parts that get cut for length. If that's what you're here for, subscribe. In the spring of 2011, at a conference on machine learning, Cipher met a computer scientist named Kevin Knight from the University of Southern California. Knight's field was machine translation, teaching computers to turn one language into another. She passed him a copy of the manuscript with a note attached. Here comes the top secret manuscript. Knight's first job was tedious and manual. He hand-copied the symbols into a format a computer could actually read. Then he asked the machine what language was underneath. His team ran the text against roughly 80 European languages using translation software. The answer was underwhelming. A slight preference for German. Slight. But the book had come out of Berlin, so they committed. Then they found the assumption that had been wrecking every attempt for 200 years. Everyone had treated the Roman and Greek letters as the message and the abstract symbols as noise. It was exactly backwards. The plain Roman letters were spaces. The abstract symbols carried every letter of the text. From there, it came apart quickly. Symbols marked with a circumflex turned out to be the letter E. One 3-symbol cluster appeared far more often than chance allowed, and resolved into CHT, a common trio in German. And then real words started coming out. The first meaningful phrase was Zeremonien der Initiation, meaning ceremonies of initiation. Right behind it came Geheime Abteilung, meaning secret section. 16 pages in, they had the ritual you heard at the start of this video. But the book is 105 pages long, and this is the part that mostly gets left out. Past roughly page 25, the eye surgery stops, and the manuscript turns into something else entirely. Masonic regalia, signs, grips, and degrees, including material on the Scottish master degree that specialists consider unusually early. Arturo de Hoyos, the Grand Archivist of the Scottish Rite's Southern Jurisdiction and a reader of 18th century German, pointed out something the code breakers had no reason to catch. Swap the German word Maurer, meaning mason, in wherever the text says oculist, and a very different book appears. And when Honorforce read the decoded German, he found something else again. The text talks about slaying a tyrannical three-headed monster that deprives man of his natural freedom. It calls for a general revolt that was written in the 1740s, roughly 30 years before the American Declaration of Independence. Two things here are genuinely unsettled, and I'd rather say so than let the headline stand unchallenged. The first is the word in the title of this video. Was this AI? In the sense that matters, yes. A machine learning algorithm found the key, scoring candidate letter mappings against German language statistics until the numbers stopped improving. But nobody typed a question into a chatbot. Knight hand transcribed the symbols before any of it ran, and human language expertise finished the job. The machine got them through the door. It didn't walk them through the building. The second is bigger. Nobody agrees on who these men actually were. The university announcement that broke the story said plainly that the members were not eye doctors, only fascinated by eye surgery. Other researchers described them as genuine eye surgeons, organized against medical quacks. Masonic archivists read the whole ophthalmology framing as a cover for preserving banned ritual. And one portion of the text reads as hostile to Freemasonry, which would make them infiltrators rather than members. Those readings cannot all be true at once. What isn't in dispute is that the book is open now. The full deciphered German and an English translation are published online, free, by the team that broke it. A parallel manuscript sits in the State Archive at Wolfenbüttel, and further documents from the Order's own records were added to the research project afterward. The papers of its masters, more of its rules. The method outlived the manuscript too. Knight turned next to the ciphers sent by the Zodiac Killer, and the broader point his team made has held up. European archives are full of encrypted documents that were never read, cataloged as curiosities because nobody had a way in. The Copiale is the proof that having a way in changes what history is available to us. What stays with me is the smallest detail in the whole story. A man standing in a room full of candles holding a blank sheet of paper, being told that the only thing between him and sight is a single hair. So, eye doctors hiding a politics? Or a politics hiding behind eye doctors? Tell me in the comments.